He's got black eyes, like a doll's eyes. This doll has eyes, like a doll's eyes. I'm just Cullen, and welcome to Anomalous.
Very good.
Yeah. I don't like that you stared at me like right in my eyes the whole time, but it's fine.
Yep. You gonna intro the show?
Yes. Okay, so with that, stop with that sassy. I'm Spooky Maddie, and welcome to Anomalous, the show that talks about all things anomalous.
Very good.
Today I did not participate in the cold open because today we will be talking about Robert the Doll, a subject that genuinely frightens me a lot.
Yeah, I hope that everyone enjoyed my cold open. Clearly very good.
Yes, always good, never
sensical.
bad.
Sensible
Made
is
sense
what it is.
to me. I'm very scared about talking about this. I hate cursed objects, which we might get into something like that for maybe a special Halloween episode.
That should be our first note. Welcome to the second episode of October. We never mentioned in the first one, but we're doing like back-to-back spooky stuff. Haunting for the first one, and for the second one, to change things up, a haunting.
Or like a curse.
A curse, it might be a
haunted
curse.
object. I had nightmares about Robert
Did
the
you?
Doll last night, yes.
Yeah?
Yeah, I had a false awakening, and before we went to Dunkin' Donuts, as we do, not sponsored, by the way.
Should be sponsored by Dunkin' Donuts. We get it before every recording, if we haven't mentioned that every time.
I heard like a scream, and you're like, "It's Robert the Doll," and then I looked in the mirror, and my hair was cut, and
my
you're
God.
like, "Robert cut your hair," and I was like, "No, I've been kind of."
Yeah, you've been waiting for a haircut.
So
Yeah.
I take the good with the bad.
I mean, who are you gonna trust with your hair more? The random woman you get every time at Supercuts on $5 cut day, or a doll with non-movable fingers?
Hard to say.
It's about on
Yeah.
the same level.
Today we will be covering Robert the Doll, whom is a 116-year-old boy doll residing in Key West, Florida. Throughout his long life, the doll has been surrounded by rumors of hauntings and curses. Many have claimed that the doll can move and even speak. More still claim that Robert has cursed them for not showing him the respect he deserves, which is why I'm scared, because I don't think just Cullen will show him the respect he deserves.
I'm gonna give this little tiny boy all the respect he deserves. At what point in reading that summary did you realize that I wrote it while you took your 2-hour nap pre-podcast recording?
Let me count. 1, 2, 7 words in.
7 words in. Very
Yes,
good.
yeah.
Yes.
But I went with it. I'm a good reader. I'm good at reading, so you're welcome, world.
Thanks.
And thank you for writing that while I took my 15-minute break before filming.
I mean, it probably felt like a second on your end. Really, it was a 2-hour nap on me and Creature's end. He's just looking at me the entire time.
Well, it felt like a second on my end.
Creature's got black eyes, like a doll's eyes.
That's true. Well, this Robert the Doll was originally gifted to one Robert Eugene Otto in the early 1900s around.
Longtime listeners of the last podcast that we put out 2 weeks ago will remember that Maddie does not like little boys, especially little boys from the 1900s. And we've kind of got two in this story. We've got the original Robert, who is a young boy born in Key West, Florida. And we've got Robert, who became Robert the Doll, which was a doll gifted to the boy around like 7 years old.
What do you want me to say? Yeah, I love little boys? No. And you better not edit that. Sounds like
Can we get a
me
clean
saying-
love little boys from you?
Yeah, and maybe in your progressive mind, maybe this will make you think twice about giving dolls to boys.
That's all it takes is one haunted doll to scare the liberals out of their mindsets. Sure, they're all about breaking down gender norms, but then you give a haunted doll to a boy, and they're like, maybe we stick to giving dollhouses to girls. You know? Mm-hmm. You know?
Yeah, I mean, honestly.
Mm-hmm. Well, let's get into a description of Robert. This is kind of what he looks like nowadays. Presumably he was more good looking back then.
I'm sorry, I'm just like disturbed that you're saying he's not good looking because that's disrespectful and you're gonna put a curse on us.
Robert is a very nice looking boy who unfortunately shows his age, but he's 116 years old, so what are you gonna do?
Nice. Robert is a...
I'm 23 and I have cancer, so if you make it to 116.
We technically have to respect him.
Yeah.
Yeah, our GoFundMe for Cullen's cancer
You know,
will be
for 3 out of 4 episodes, you've pitched some sort of crowdfunding campaign.
Yeah, why not?
All right, fair enough.
We offer a public service.
Mm-hmm. And on our OnlyFans, we'll be offering a public service.
Oh my gosh. No. Okay, Robert is a 3-foot tall boy. 3-foot tall. Robert is a 3-foot tall doll boy.
Trying to say Robert's a 3-foot tall doll boy 5 times fast and not get arrested.
He's made of cloth and filled with straw. He wears a white sailor suit, one that once belonged to his owner Eugene, and sits with a toy dog in his lap. Many describe the toy dog as quote-unquote unhinged, with bulging eyes and a stuck-out tongue.
For all you people that aren't dog people, that's gonna sound like a description of any dog, but...
How dare. Over his 116-year life, Robert's features have faded, and his face has become riddled with tears and holes. All that remains distinct are his piercing black button eyes and mirthless smile. And he's lived almost his entire life in Key West, Florida, if that tells you anything. This doll is terrifying. It really is. I first heard of this doll when I would just watch, like, ghost specials when I was, like, 6 on Travel Channel.
He's a popular haunted doll.
Yeah.
I wonder, are there any, like, good-looking haunted dolls? Because I haven't heard of a haunted Barbie. Wouldn't be able to do a lot without movable elbows.
Annabelle is the closest you'll get. Raggedy Ann doll is like a popular... I had a Raggedy Ann doll, which will
You
probably...
made Kiss the
No!
Raggedy... You made Kiss its a male counterpart.
I told you that in confidence.
Did you tell your mom that saw you doing it in confidence? You just
My
thought she was
shame.
asleep. You thought she was asleep, didn't you?
I had a Raggedy Ann and a Raggedy Andy. And one time before taking a nap, I made them kiss.
That's the sort of humanizing behavior that creates a haunted doll.
And my mom caught me. Now, my Raggedy Ann and Raggedy Andy are sex freak dolls that are alive and sexual predators.
Oh my god. They're haunting the streets of Tucson, grabbing asses.
Yeah.
Sex freak does make me think, is there a haunted real doll?
Oh, God.
Is there?
Isn't there that Quibi show that kind of does that?
Who the fuck watches Quibi?
He's mad at me because I mentioned Quibi.
I'm concerned that you're accepting Quibi money on the side. There's no other reason that you'd possibly bring up Quibi.
This episode, sponsored in part by Quibi. They gave us a free Subway sandwich. That's all they could afford.
They give us a half-eaten Subway sandwich to mention the name of their network derogatorily.
Times are tight.
They really are.
So Robert the doll was originally owned by Robert Eugene Otto, otherwise known as Gene. The Ottos were a prominent Key West family, and Gene lived in a stately home named the Artist House. Likely named so because Gene himself was an artist. He was also a certified eccentric, as all sites say, though they don't necessarily give examples.
Maybe it was the fact that he carried a 3-foot doll with a deteriorating face around with him constantly.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I think it probably has something to do with the fact that he brought his childhood doll everywhere and referred to it, like, as a living person. Mm-hmm. This story has a lot of speculation, a lot of legend and lore surrounding it that has kind of obfuscated the exact timeline of the events in Robert and his owner Gene's life. But we are going to be doing the best we can to piece together this terrifying tale. So much of the speculation comes from the origin of the doll, how Gene came to receive this doll itself.
That sounds disgusting.
How dare you just take this innocent...
This innocent story of a boy with his anatomically correct doll. Why do you think he's wearing pants? Why do you think he has that little sailor suit on?
Dolls?
And what's the implication of a sailor suit? Things happen on
Semen.
the sea. Men grow lonely on the waves.
What's happening? You can't see it because you're listening, but he has like a glazed look in his eyes. He started smoking. Where did you get those cigarettes?
It's when you refuse to let me talk about gay sailors on the Mary Celeste episode, I'm deciding to shoehorn it into this one.
Great. So, a lot of speculation has also come around across the curse that this doll supposedly has. We know that Jean received the doll as a child, younger than 10, in the early 1900s. We also know that Jean had a very strong relationship with the doll and named it after himself immediately after receiving it. And this definitely contributes to the creep factor of the doll and the story, is the fact that he really humanized this doll so much.
Right.
Which is like fine if you're 8 or whatever, I guess. But I mean, he becomes an adult. He still does it.
Well, before we'll get into how the doll was renamed, but there are questions, like you said, about how exactly he received the doll in the first place. So, some research from the museum that holds him right now says that it was picked up in Germany in the 1900s and gifted to him by his grandpa. But other things say that his Bahamian, and I looked it up, and you're not going to believe me, but people from the Bahamas are called conks. That's not a slur, I don't think. It was in Wikipedia.
Oh, no.
It looks like conches, but it's pronounced conks.
Oh.
It really sounds like offensive.
Slurry.
I'm just I'll say both Bahamian and conk and edit out whichever one I think is more offensive.
Yeah.
So the Bahamian conk servant.
God.
So that servant may have given the doll to Robert, and possibly, if the rumor stays true, she was disgruntled after being fired by the family without cause, and cursed some voodoo of some sort on the doll before giving it to Robert, possibly imbuing it with a spirit. I don't know.
Yeah, so to add some details, the Fort East Martello Museum, where Robert currently resides, did some research for the first theory that it was given to him by his grandpa. It kind of seems to work out, that story.
Makes the most sense and is backed up by any sort of fact.
It's unknown. For sure.
Sure.
But yeah, researchers traced Robert back to the Steiff Company, which first created the teddy bear after Teddy Roosevelt, which is kind of cool. It was believed that Robert wasn't actually made to be a toy, wasn't made for like playful or entertainment purposes.
If you know what I mean.
Oh, God. But was rather a mannequin, part of a set that would be in the windows for the store.
Yeah, it was a storefront
mannequin. It was a set of jesters and clowns.
Which is a little on the fucking nose for a haunted doll to originally have been made to be a clown.
A clown mannequin,
A clown mannequin. Oh, God. That's so upsetting. But it does make sense that he was a mannequin first, because as he goes on and is given a set of clothing, it seems to fit him like really well, which isn't typical of a regular play doll. A regular play doll isn't well proportioned to a 3 or 4 year old.
Yeah, also, if you look at pictures of him, kind of reminds me of the old school Old Navy mannequin vibes.
Yeah. Old Navy. You need to make Robert your forefront spokesperson for your clothing brand right now.
Holy shit, the amount of 4th of July Old Navy shirts that will be bought after that go crazy. And
it's like a Hypnotoad style ad where it's just a slow zoom in on Robert's face. If you don't buy Old Navy suits for your child, Robert will be very angry with you.
That is terrifying. So other sources, mostly local, state that they had a Bahamian servant, a woman who was vengeful after being mistreated by the family, which I don't know. It doesn't seem like the family would treat their Bahamian servants well. So fair enough. Some sources say the disgruntled servant constructed Robert herself. However, there are other tales saying that maybe Jean received the doll from his grandpa and then the servant put a voodoo-style curse. So some people maybe wonder, why would you give a kid such a creepy doll? But my late abuela, rest in peace, gave me many creepy dolls in my time, one of which was like 3 foot tall. I don't know if any of you have seen Throwback to Millennials or whatever we are. Those dolls, they don't have a face. It was like a little girl, 3 foot tall, didn't have a face, but had like her hands over her face and she was supposed to go in corners.
Frightening.
Yeah.
Sounds like a factory mix-up between a doll and the See-No-Evil monkey.
Yes.
And now we can all rest assured that all of those creepy dolls that your grandma gave you are sitting in a closet, sharpening the missing kitchen knives.
Yes. I think if you're a doll maker, you have to actively make sure the doll is not creepy.
And it was given to him by his grandpa, and old people have too high of a tolerance for what is creepy.
So they're watching themselves decay.
Yeah, they're watching themselves slowly fall apart in the mirror, so they look around their house and see a bunch of painted clowns and like old-timey lamps that look like they're cursed, and they're just like, this is fine. I think they surround themselves with horrifying vintage objects in the hope that they will haunt it. Their spirit will be moved into the item.
That is kind of genius.
It really is smart. We have to get a vintage, like, I'm obsessed with a vintage lamp for this purpose, and get it cleared out, get the old fucking bag that's in haunting it out of there, and move ourselves in so we can haunt it together, this lamp.
I don't know.
You don't want to be a ghost?
I don't want to be a lamp.
Well, yeah.
All you could do is like,
on and off.
yeah, that's all you could do.
It's better than being a doll that someone's going to throw in the goddamn fire.
I would like to haunt my moth ball.
He's looking
good, right?
He's looking all right.
What do you
changed
mean?
his water. I think it's a little murky.
I'm a terrible moss ball mom.
Oh, I'm sure.
Okay, so Jean became instantly connected to Robert the doll, and he did name it after himself. It was after getting the doll that the child Robert started going by his middle name, Jean. And when his mother asked him why he wanted to change his name to Jean, he replied that Robert told him to.
That's not great.
It's a power move by Robert.
At the very least, even if Robert isn't haunted, the mom has to know that her son's a little bit of a pushover. Yeah, the doll can have my name. I mean, It's just my only name that I have.
True.
I'll go by Gene. Not even Eugene, my full middle name. I'll just go by Gene.
Yeah, well, what kid wants to go by Eugene?
A kid who's very good at spelling bees.
Fun. So Jean brought the doll everywhere, even into adulthood, and would talk about the doll as if he were a living entity. You know, he'd be like, oh yeah, me and my pal Robert just slammed some brewskis. Par example.
And then he pulls up the doll just soaked with beer.
Oof. So some sources state that one of the first nights Robert was in the room, Jean's parents heard him yelling and heard furniture moving. They ran into Jean's room to find his furniture and belongings just thrown about while Jean was crying, and all he could say was Robert did it.
I have been building a theory that Robert Eugene, the kid, is actually some form of a genius, because he found a way to confuse his parents into not getting him in trouble. Pointing at a doll with the same name as you, saying Robert did it, while that's actually your real name, pretty smart.
That is smart.
Just ignoring your mom constantly when she calls your name Robert across the house and being like, I thought the doll would go. I thought you wanted him to clean up the dishes. Also very smart.
Genius. Honestly, that's some like Odysseus in the Odyssey level shit. Like when he tells the Cyclops his name is no one.
Interesting.
Nobody. That's a little lit humor for ya. Anyways. So this became really common. Jean began to blame Robert for every wrongdoing, every little mishap to big mishap.
Every Jerky Boy style stunt all the way up to terrorist act he would blame on Robert the doll.
Honestly, commonly uttering the phrase, Robert did it. So his parents would constantly hear Jean whispering to the doll and said that one day they heard a different, possibly deep voice talking back. Yeah, we had to talk about this. That's like, what if it was just the kid doing voices?
Yeah, it definitely was just the kid doing voices.
Oh, okay.
And I love a kid trying to do a low voice. It's like when you try to do a low voice.
It just reminds me of that Office episode with Robert California. I bet the look is like, Robert, how are you today? And he's just like, I'm fine, bitch.
He's a doll of few words.
Yeah.
But more words than most dolls.
It's true.
But even more than talking, they said that they would hear giggling from the other room. Which you, again, have a very personal dislike for child giggling.
Hell nah. Scary.
Don't like
Like,
it.
I can't
That's
recreate
the end of the
it.
podcast is over. The podcast is done. I'm leaving.
You're leaving?
Yeah, I have
You're
to.
divorcing me?
I'm taking the microphone and the cat, and I'm out of here. I giggle.
You're not taking the dog?
No, definitely not.
Alright.
You can have the house, and to balance it out, you have to have the dog.
Are you gonna pay rent?
No.
I can't.
I'm driving a car into the Grand Canyon after hearing that giggle. How am I going to pay rent?
Yes, child giggling is scary. Old-timey, a doll child. And if he had, like, a deep voice, he's like, oh, ho, ho, ho. Oh, that is scary.
Hey, Robert, would you like some tea? It's mint. Oh, I love mint.
He loves mint tea.
Kind of sounded like George Takei a little bit.
It did.
Kind of did. Robert, I'd love to play with you. Do you want to play spaceship? Oh my.
Very good. Yeah, so his parents would hear giggling almost constantly, and they would also hear footsteps in Jean's room, even when he wasn't there.
His parents just sitting there, his dad has like the fucking wide newspaper open and his mom's knitting, but they're both just doing that like early 1900s frown that all parents had on their face perpetually, and they hear giggling in the other room, and they're just like, I hate giggling.
I mean, so giggling obviously is creepy as shit from a child.
Technically, it's them expressing their happiness.
Yeah,
sure.
so...
Yeah. These parents shouldn't be so off-put to hear giggling.
That's kind of sad. They're like, yeah, we heard giggling in our child's room. Never heard that before.
Yeah.
Get your kids some therapy.
They're calling back up. It's like, Dad, you know that doll you gave to Robert? It's making him giggle. I'll have none of it.
Very proper. So Jean would often wake up to find that Robert moved during the night, and he would be at the foot of Jean's bed, sitting and staring at him.
Not cute when Creature does it. Not cute when a doll does it.
It's pretty scary, you know. I had a bunch of stuffed animals when I was a kid. Mm-hmm. And one time, my stuffed monkey, there was one hanging and one with a big fat butt, and they arranged themselves so it looked like one of the monkeys was humping the other, and my parents took a picture of it and made fun of me.
Seems like you've had a long history with having dolls do sex acts on each other.
I didn't do the monkeys.
Didn't ya?
No!
Are you claiming that these are gay haunted monkeys?
Yes.
Are those what you used to convince your brother that your room was haunted so he'd stop hanging out with you?
Exactly correct.
Big sister of the Century Award.
Technically.
What do you mean technically? That makes it sound like you're the only one.
I received it in the mail last week. So, his parents would also report that Robert's expression would change depending on what was being discussed around him. That has actually been reported consistently.
Even up until modern day.
Mm-hmm. And Robert would often be blamed for throwing various objects across the room, as well as moving from where he was placed. Like moving different rooms, moving across the room. One repairman reportedly heard giggling in the house upstairs, even though no one was home.
Interesting. Psychotic repairman or haunted doll? It's hard to choose. Haunted doll.
The episode is Haunted Doll. Okay.
Next week on Anomalous, psychotic repairman.
In 1930, Gene married his wife Anne, whom he met in Paris.
Anne was a concert and jazz pianist. And she was actually renowned for not signing up for this creepy doll shit.
Honestly. Yeah. She was an accomplished musician, and Gene grew to be a painter. He grew
to be an author. And he grew to be a continuing eccentric who brings his creepy-ass doll everywhere.
True. Unfortunately, Anne and Robert, the doll, did not get along.
I mean, it's one thing to, like, list out the numerous children you have on your Tinder account. Like, that's gonna make you a viable right swipe.
Ooh.
But it's another thing altogether to have your first photo with this pock-faced doll on your knee with George Takei's voice. You know what? Honestly, that might soothe me.
Yeah.
Can we there must be a Star Trek doll out there somewhere with George Takei's voice.
And we could just move that voice box into Robert.
Oh, a little voice box transplant.
Yeah. You know how Build-A-Bear, you put those hearts in? Robert got a scary heart.
I think he's got some Nazi gold in the center of him.
Oh, God.
That's the old grandpa smuggling Nazi gold over.
Oh, God.
1900 is when the Nazis were around, right?
Oh, God.
Mrs. Schultz.
That is so rude. So, like Gene's parents, Anne got an unexplainable bad vibe from Robert, and this just makes sense.
Yeah.
She did not appreciate her grown husband's obsession with the doll. Okay.
That actually makes a lot of sense.
She demanded he be kept away, suggested he be locked up in the attic in a box.
I mean, the other day, you saw me hugging the cat and called me gay from across the house, so I can only imagine what you would do if I had a doll that I carried around with me, who was a boy in a sailor's outfit.
I myself am a part of the LGBT community, so it's not homophobic.
Bad to shout gay across the house when I kiss my adorable cat.
Our adorable cat. What?
It seems like you don't accept him as part of the family.
So?
Okay, let's move on.
Okay, so instead of locking him up in a box and just kind of like moving on from his childhood, processing it, getting a therapist.
Robert the doll is not going to appreciate the shade you're throwing at Eugene.
It's true.
I can see her reconsidering this entire script.
I'm gonna pray after this. Prey on some Weight Watchers fudge bars.
Yeah, she stalks them through the kitchen like a lioness.
It's true. So Gene reportedly, instead of locking him away, made Robert his own space in the attic, complete with furniture. And footsteps and giggling were frequently heard from the attic.
Upsetting. And you know what? I'll give that a point in the Eugene is eccentric category. Making the doll like a little bedroom set, like a sitcom set in the attic. That's pretty eccentric.
Yeah, I don't know. So despite being in his own little room in the attic with the door closed,
it seems that Robert wasn't satisfied with the digs.
He was often seen in the window of the upstairs bedroom and was sometimes found by Anne or Gene sitting in the rocking chair. Once again, this is despite him being locked in the attic.
And kids that would walk by the house had their own stories that they built up around it, and even had reported that the doll, he would taunt them as they walked to and from school. If you, as a doll who has no fingers and only slightly movable arms, can somehow mock kids out of a window, that's amazing improv prop work. To be able to just... to somehow insult them with just really rudimentary movements. Very good.
Yeah.
Did he study with the Groundlings? What? Was he a UCB grad, actually?
Oh my god. All right.
Tina Fey, did you teach this doll everything it knows? Or did it teach you? Look under co-writers on 30
Please
Rock.
Stop.
There's Robert the doll.
Yeah, so he seemed to prefer the upstairs window, the upstairs room, and particularly the window. He would constantly, according to school children and other passerbys, he would like appear and disappear and then reappear in the window. He would change his expression while people passed, or his head and eyes would move to follow people as they passed.
Do you think that once once there was like the secretary for the mayor in Powerpuff Girls walked by and his big black eyes bulged out of his head. It's like, Awooga!
Oh my god. Out of all, like, the sex symbols, you think of the secretary without a face from the Powerpuff Girls?
It's called a formative period in a young boy's life.
Jesus.
Technically, she was a powerful, clear-headed woman, and people forget that.
She didn't even have a head.
Yeah, you couldn't see her face, but she was always the voice of reason next to, like, the bumbling mayor. But everyone just remembers her legs, and you know what? That's sexist of society, not of the showrunners.
Well, in 1974, Gene died. We did some research, but how he died isn't really clear.
This is just like you give Bertolacci a bad name from our last episode. This is another example of no facts, no story, or no facts, fun story. So let's hear the fun story.
Well, the not fun story would be he died of natural causes.
He was 74 years old.
Yeah, at 74. But the fun story.
The fun story!
So there are some reports that he was found dead, laying in the attic with the doll on top of him and the doll's hands around his neck.
This comes from the same fun site that, like, had versions where Robert would wake up at the foot of the parents' bed sitting on a kitchen knife.
Yeah.
Oh, sick! Oh, it's cool as fuck!
I think this doll inspired Chucky.
It
Child's
did.
Play.
Yeah. And wasn't there a Robert movie at some point?
In 2015, yeah.
For all of those movies, the glassy, creepy doll's eyes are upsetting, but they're not as upsetting as pure black button eyes with no expression.
It's true.
Hire us to design the doll for a movie.
To create your haunted doll.
Now just imagine you're hiding from Chucky underneath your bed, and you hear him come into the room, a knife dragging behind him. And right before he stabs down through the mattress into your hand, you hear, "Oh my."
Very scary. Very scary.
Extremely frightening.
So after his death, Gene's wife, Anne, moved out of the house. She did not take Robert with him. She did not like that guy.
While that might speak to the relationship, it's also fair of all the belongings that you're gonna bring out of your house as like an 80-year-old woman, are you gonna include your creepy husband's old doll? Or are you gonna leave that one behind?
They never had kids, did they?
I don't know. I don't think so.
Quote unquote eccentric. Within 2 years, Anne would follow her husband, leaving the house to be sold to one Myrtle Reuter.
Yep. Long last name on
that. And of course, Robert was still in the house.
It's weird to sell a house with your shit inside.
Not if you're dead. Estate sale.
Yeah, exactly. An estate
that's
sale.
fair.
If we've learned anything from watching Pawn Stars, it is that the family swoops in the second you die to sell anything that could be even vaguely valuable.
I hate that shit.
Yeah.
And they're just like, yeah, my grandma just still cold.
Yeah. That guy that came in that was like, she played this organ every single day in church. It was her most valued possession. She died last month, so here it is. What can you give me for it?
God, hate it. But Myrtle, the buyer, chose to keep Robert in the house for better or worse.
Worse.
Yes. He was originally kept in his 10-year-old daughter's room, which I guess makes sense. Like, here's a doll, good.
It was already an 80-year-old doll at that point. You have its black eyes, its stitched together face, and its pock-marked cloth. What 10-year-old girl saw that and was like, oh, cool, just a regular doll to have, to play with?
Yeah. Listen to your kids when they're like, this doll is creepy.
Yeah, and it didn't work out well because almost immediately that 10-year-old girl started to complain to her mom, Myrtle, that the doll was talking to her.
Yeah, so the family reported a few scary phenomena with the doll. They would report when they said anything bad about their late owner, Gene, Robert's expression would change. And the real scare here, Myrtle's 10-year-old daughter complained that Robert would whisper to her, and she told her mom, the doll is alive and he wants to hurt me.
Surely just kids playing around. That's kids having fun. You ever seen, All That?
Yep.
That's what it's like.
Okay. What? The house was then sold again to its current owners, who began to operate the beautiful colonial Queen Anne-style building as a guest house, offering room for rent at presumably expensive prices. Colin made me retake this because he didn't think it was fun that I said Colonel Queen Anne style.
Mm-hmm.
That's rude.
It's just because you've been asking to get fried chicken every single night, and I can't stomach anymore. I looked up the prices. Not as bad as you would think. It starts at $200. Point being, we sat there while we were supposed to be researching this last night and sort of devised a vacation plan in which we fly to Florida, stay one night inside of the house, which I want to do and she absolutely doesn't, and then sail to the Bahamas for some sort of vacation.
I do not want to go on this vacation, even to see this beautiful Colonel Queen Anne style building.
You're really making it impossible for me to edit out you saying Colonel Queen Anne.
Yeah.
I'm so mad about this Colonel thing.
I don't really want to go to Florida. I don't really want to go to the Bahamas. Seems white and old.
What do you mean? You don't want to visit the Keys, the home of Jimmy Buffett?
No.
Whose fans, according to Wikipedia, are called parrot heads?
Ugh,
yeah.
God.
Yep.
Yep. Anyways.
It's Margaritaville, baby.
In 1994, Robert would finally leave the house, being donated to the East Martello Museum. But this isn't the end of the story for the Key West home nor for Robert.
I'm going to edit that so your chuckle at the beginning of 1994 sounds like it's laughing at me saying Margaritaville, baby.
No.
Yeah, well.
Ay, ay, ay. So, though rarely told in the tale of Robert the Doll, many guests have reported the house itself haunted.
We have a double haunting episode. People that stay in the turret room have reported to see Anne as a apparition descending the stairs of the turret in her wedding dress. And they say, she's looking pretty good.
Do they say that or you say that?
All of them are weirdly specific about how good she looks.
Oh.
And none of them are even qualify it where it's like, she looks good for a 120-year-old ghost. It's like, she looks good full stop.
Damn, sexy ghost.
There's also been vaguer claims that Jean is inhabiting the house in ghastly form, but there aren't specific sightings for that.
Are the spirits eternally waiting for Robert to return?
Are they?
I don't
That's
know.
very fun to see Jean there just like floating around the house like, you see my doll? He floats over to the next room in his bed and breakfast. You see my doll? He's got like a fucked up face. He sounds like this. Oh my.
Oh my god.
All right. Well, keep an eye out for him. He should be around here somewhere. And it's like, the doll's been moved. Thank God. She finally decided to move back in because Robert the Doll was taken out.
Yeah, she's like, I'm gonna get my rent's worth. Good for her. But back to Robert. He has lived in the East Martello Museum since being moved there in 1994. Still today is there. But every October he has shifted to the old post office and custom house. And he has also taken a few tours of like the occult.
Yeah, I would love to see him in like those star David Bowie sunglasses. They give him like a rhinestone covered sailor suit.
Yeah, that's fine.
He's really going on tour in style.
He has to.
Where do you tour with a haunted doll?
Like occult festivals.
Occult festivals?
Yeah. It's like Comic-Con, but occult con.
Like, where are these held?
I don't know, Google it.
Just an old shack in the woods of the Midwest.
Yeah.
On top of a serial killer's grave is one of his photo ops.
Oh, yeah.
Next to the Black Dahlia killer.
Just like in the flesh.
Yep.
Okay. So Robert's reputation has made him a tourist attraction and possibly the only reason to visit Key West besides a funeral.
I wrote that one. It's the only joke I slipped into the script this week after she reduced the amount I'm allowed to write after the incident from last episode.
Yeah. Robert has remained active as a spooky ghost doll. Mm-hmm. Employees and guests have reported seeing Robert's expression change and even heard his giggling.
often in response to, again, bad-mouthing of his beloved owner, Robert.
Not the giggling, but the expression change.
If you say something particularly funny about
he's
Robert,
like,
it's like...
They report if you say something particularly funny about Gene, he's like, you're so bad.
yeah, it's fun.
He giggles. He's like, we're being so bad right now.
We're being so bad. It's like, I love the guy, but it's like, cool it.
It's like, you're kind of right. Electronic device trouble frequently happens around him, including issues with cameras, which we will get to why this might happen right now.
Right now.
So, there is a very famous curse that is said to be on Robert, be associated with Robert.
This is truly a Halloween spectacular episode. We've got 2 hauntings, 3 if you count the ghosts as separate, and a curse.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
So Robert is kept in a closed glass case with a sign that reads, "Do not photograph." When visiting the museum, visitors are told they must politely ask Robert if they can take a picture of him. They must also introduce themselves nicely, and they must say goodbye before leaving the museum. If visitors take a photo without asking or disrespect Robert or his owner Gene in any way, misfortune will befall them. So hopefully he doesn't hear this podcast. Yikes!
See that in the notes. Very good.
Yeah.
Good reading if ever I heard one. I wish that I was able to curse all of the people that took photographs of me at inopportune times.
We have all been there.
There is a collection somewhere of just photos of me in sopping wet swimming t-shirts that I wore out of shame. Just delving deeper and deeper as though my belly button itself is eating the t-shirt.
That's just kind of sad that you have that specific
Just photographs
trauma.
of that. Don't wear the t-shirt to swim.
Do not wear the t-shirt to swim. If you got it, flaunt it, baby.
Don't let your friends take photos of you at a party after 1 o'clock in the morning.
That's true.
All phones away.
So, disrespecting...
That was sassy.
Yeah. Disrespecting visitors have been punished, cursed with misfortune, such as car crashes, broken bones, failing marriages, and many other instances of just bad luck. These patterns of misfortune can last anywhere from hours to days to years, possibly dependent on their transgressions. I saw one Pop Sugar article. This girl just had bad luck for 36 hours. I think she just said like one thing about Gene carrying around the doll, but the girl who stuck her tongue out at him, they had a longer curse.
Most of the reports of this curse and the bad luck come from letters, and the museum that hosts Robert receives sometimes several letters a day from people, and a large proportion of them are people apologizing to Robert for taking his photo without asking, or just generally being disrespectful, and asking him or pleading with him to lift the curse of bad luck that he's put on them.
Many letters. I was just like, please forgive me. I shouldn't have taken your picture. Shouldn't have disrespected you. I should have given you the respect you deserve.
Let's actually read a couple of the letters that I have curated from Google.
This one was dated March 31st, 2010. Dear Robert, I'm very sorry for not asking your permission to take your picture while visiting the museum last week. Since I've taken your picture without permission, many strange things have happened to me. While driving back from the Keys, a deer ran out in front of our car. We had to swerve to avoid hitting it and ran off the road. We almost hit a tree. 2 days later, we had a small kitchen fire. Also, we've been hearing childlike giggles coming from our basement. Last night, I was home all alone. I heard a voice coming from the basement. When I went to investigate, I tripped and fell down the bottom 3 stairs. I got up to run out, but the door was locked. My husband said that I probably turned the lock up myself without even thinking about it and locked myself in the basement. But honestly, Robert, we both know the truth. Please accept my deepest apology for taking your picture without asking. Also, please accept my daughter's apology for sticking her tongue out at you and making fun of you. Sincerely, Rosie. That's very scary. I think the image of the deer is scary because I have recently read 2 horror books, Imaginary Friend and The Only Good Indians, which I highly recommend, that are scary with deers.
Would you also like to say what is it, a month and a half after first claiming that you have
Yes.
read I'm Thinking of Ending Things?
I have read I'm Thinking of Ending Things. I read it like right after I said, but then I accidentally said it wrong, so we
Yeah,
cut
you
it out.
accidentally called it the Tim Robinson Show. I think you should leave.
Yes, but highly recommend for this October spooky season, Imaginary Friends, The Only Good Indians, and I'm Thinking of Ending Things.
The book more so than the movie.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah! Here's another one. Dear Robert, I went to Key West in October 2009. I decided to come see you and was told to ask you before I took any pictures of you. I asked to take your picture 3 times, and of all 3 times, my camera suddenly shut off. It was a new camera and new batteries, so it wasn't the camera. I turned around and took a photo of the hearse behind me. Had no problems taking the photo, until I got home and downloaded the pictures on my computer and realized there was a reflection of you in the glass. I really didn't think anything of it, but shortly after my computer crashed with a virus. I got hurt at work, I lost my job, I lost my new truck, lost my home. It's been a downhill slide since then. If I didn't believe before, I do now, and I apologize if I upset you. Sincerely,
I've heard many reports of people not asking and then trying to take pictures and they don't come out.
Yeah.
It's creepy. So this one is dated 7/13/07, and it says, Dear Robert, we went down to see you early last year. I foolishly took a picture of you. Ever since, I have been under a terrible string of bad luck. I've lost jobs, broke bones, property vandalism, and hundreds of other terrible things have happened. This is my last resort to end this bad luck. Sorry for taking your picture.
Very frightening. And this last one, in my opinion, just because it's so short and it's scrawled out on like a notepad from a hotel, it just says, Dear Robert, I'm sorry for not asking you if I could take your picture. Please forgive me. No name.
Yeah, very scary. So, Robert receives a lot of other letters in the museum as well. Bolder letters ask Robert not to lift his curse, but rather to cast a curse or a
Fucking
hex.
sick. Asking Robert to curse someone for you?
Yeah, so it said he receives letters asking Robert to put a curse on people they don't like. The person who takes care of Robert also said that, like, he receives a bunch of letters from children just being like, hey, how's your day?
I saw a lot of letters from kids on Google just being like, hey Robert, how's it going? It's like, don't let your kid write a letter to a haunted fucking doll.
Don't let your kid, I would not mail that letter.
Anomalous PSA. Don't let your kid write letters to a haunted doll. It's not gonna end good.
No.
But asking Robert to curse someone for you, like an enemy of yours or someone that did you wrong, badass. Also somewhat worrying, because you know there's that guy that shows up to your house party that no one remembers who invited him. He's like dressed all in black. He's got mismatched, poorly done eyeliner. And it's like, hey, Jeremy, glad to have you here, but can you not bring your huge snake here? No one wants to see you with your big snake. It's like a house party. I don't think that the loud music's good for the snake. And he's like, I'll have Robert curse you. Ask me not to bring James the snake.
You do kind of have to be a little bit of a weirdo.
You have to be a bit of a creep to ask a doll to curse someone.
Yeah. Or also to just, like, send him a letter, like, wanting to be his friend.
Yeah.
You can't make friends. You have to have a cursed doll.
That's
where you are.
Yeah, that's where you are in your
Have you
life.
tried a moss ball?
It's working wonders for us. I actually got a postcard from Robert from the Bahamas. That was very nice. He responded to my letter.
What did it say?
It said, hey, I'm hanging out in the Bahamas right now. Sorry I can't get around to cursing Donald Trump for you, but...
Nice.
You know,
an email that's like out of office.
Yeah, Robert's out of the office right now. He'll get to cursing that mailman who gave you the wrong Amazon package as soon as he gets back.
Last night you tried to scare me. You're like, Robert texted me, sup, but I just thought it was your friend. I was like, oh, okay.
And then I said, Robert texted me, sup, how's that juicy ass doing? And you were like, how dare you get hit on by Robert the Haunted Doll?
Yeah, I still thought it was your friend. I was like, sounds right. If he ever gets to this episode, he'll... What?
I'm rolling my eyes at Robert the person.
Oh, damn.
So here's the part of the episode where we talk about how Robert the doll is not real.
No. So we have some theories, just kind of like exploring what could have given Robert his powers.
Just to get my obligation as just Cullen out of the way. Obviously, it's very easy to say the kid was doing voices for Robert. Eugene, the weird artist, was just obsessed with the doll and would move it down from the attic, and he really liked it. It was a childhood, item. He'd move it around, and his wife would get mad, and then he'd move it back into the attic. The doll wasn't haunted. It was just a weird attachment thing. And he looks creepy, unfortunately, because of his messed up face. But he's not actually haunted or cursed or whatever. Bad luck just happens to people. For the white lady that's never had a trouble in her life writing a letter to Robert being like, you made my flight delayed and you lost my baggage when I was coming back from my Florida trip. Robert, please release me from this hell.
Yeah, and she's like, this is the worst thing that's ever happened to me. But what's white privilege?
Robert, I'm writing to you to ask, what exactly is white privilege? All very easy to explain away because there's not a lot of physical phenomenon.
Yes.
But that is very unfun. So let's get into the theories of how Robert may have become cursed.
Yeah, I just want to say in response to that, I have been made aware of Robert the Doll since I was a child, watching scary specials on the Travel Channel. And if it's not clear by now, I believe it's very cursed, and it scares me so bad, and I am going to do the rosary after this. But theories as to if he is cursed, how that could have happened. Obviously, we have the servant putting a curse on the doll.
A lot of town rumors suggest that perhaps the Bahamian servant of the house was disgruntled for some reason, perhaps an unjust firing, and then either created the doll or cursed it and then gave it to Eugene, the kid, or knew that Gene was already attached to this doll that his grandfather gave him and cursed it to punish the family.
Yeah, I honestly take this with a grain of salt. It comes from a lot of local legend. And I just take it with a grain of salt because let's get into it. Okay, a white family with a quote-unquote servant from the Bahamas. Of course, they didn't treat her good. And they're like, oh, voodoo, that's scary dark people things.
It's just a bunch of flabby white people being like, well, I started being called old woman primarily instead of my first name 30 years ago. And I just recently moved down here into America's grave, aka Florida. And I think that it was probably some sort of African voodoo, some sort of islander voodoo that cursed the doll.
The fear surrounding voodoo, I think a lot of the fear mongering around it comes from the white supremacy in the U.S.
Even if, for some reason, this servant knew voodoo, which is pretty rough immediately, why would she go through the effort of haunting a kid? That's also offensive that you're like, not only are they a voodoo practicer, she'd do it to an innocent kid.
Yeah. I think another theory that kind of calls to me, creeps me out, is the fact that Gene had such a close connection to him and would always blame his naughties on him, had the very unhealthy relationship and extremely humanized him, may have.
This is the most attractive theory to me too, besides the truth that he's not haunted, in that the continual humanization of Robert the doll is really interesting because you have, first of all, he wears constantly Gene's old clothes. Mm-hmm. He's given Gene's name, his first name, Robert.
Yeah.
He's given a toy of his own, which is the small dog he has on his lap. Don't give a toy a toy.
Don't give a toy a toy.
Very creepy. It's just like giving a mouse a cookie, but that mouse uses it in a seance to burn your house down. Him being carried around with him and living and growing up with Gene for his entire life. All of these are serving to imbue the doll with some sort of humanity.
This really appeals to my diagnosed obsessive compulsive disorder because it's him saying it so ritualistically so often is making it kind of real. Which,
just Robert did it. Robert did it. Robert did it.
And there must be some folklore or beliefs out there that is you put this energy into an object.
It does kind of give me hope that if I say creature did it, Creature did it. Creature did it to every bad thing that happens in our house. Maybe it'll slowly give him a soul.
But then he'll be like Cujo. He'll be an evil dog.
He already is like Cujo.
Oh
you just
my God.
You take 5 hours out of every day to try to get one cute photo of our dog to try to wring it out of him.
It's true. There was that hashtag unflattering photos of your dog, and I had too many to post. I kind of thought of this theory that's kind of fun because I kind of touched upon how, other than like some throwing objects, when Jean was alive, it really seemed like they were kind of homies, just kind of like giggling together, not really that like nefarious. Mm-hmm. So I had a theory that when Jean died, or he wasn't haunted at all, the doll wasn't haunted at all.
So it kind of borrows from the non-paranormal explanation in that it was Jean pretending that Robert was a person until Jean died and then he haunted Robert.
Yes.
And then I just imagine Anne Otto just like, all right, Jean, I put on my sexy wedding dress for you. Where are you, lover boy? And then he just walks in, he's like, this doll. God damn it, Robert. For my ghostly apparition, I chose me at like 25 in my wedding dress, and you chose a creepy doll.
And he's like, I loved this doll. I will continue to love this doll. What can go wrong? And then Curb Your Enthusiasm music as like locked in a glass case forever. Yeah. I'd be mad. I'd throw some curses.
We have another 1 or 2 theories here that aren't really supported by anything, but might be a good pitch for like the twist at the end of a Robert movie. What if it's not Robert that's haunted? It's actually the toy dog that's haunted.
Oh, yeah. People are really creeped out by the toy dog. I will say, I don't know if I'm blind. I don't know if I'm face blind. I know you're blind.
Thanks. Thank you for that. Appreciate it.
People are really creeped out by his toy dog. I think it's creepy the fact that he has a toy at all. But people will say, like, his tongue being all stuck out and his eyes are bulging.
The dog isn't that bad. I mean,
yeah.
As far as dogs go.
Okay, no.
Or perhaps the spirit inside of Robert the doll is a good spirit.
Fighting with the dogs.
Fighting with the dog's evil Cujo spirit.
Ooh.
Again, supported by nothing but fun twist for the end of your Robert fanfiction.
Okay, and it becomes like more evil after Jean, his owner, dies because Robert's soul is so crushed that he doesn't have his lifetime friend to give him strength. So the dog is just like, woof! And like causes curses. Yeah, it's very scary. Highly recommend. Honestly, I don't know if I will allow Cullen to post a picture of Robert on our Instagram. So highly recommend looking him up if not. Very scary, to me at least.
Very frightening, and there are a lot of low facts, high fun stories out there with Robert, which you will enjoy very much. And until you have looked at him for like 3 hours like I did, it's pretty creepy. He's got a creepy face. He does. Sure. But then he just like, you can see what he was supposed to be in there eventually. It's like, okay, Robert's fine.
I don't know. He's scary to me. And Robert, I'm sorry that me and Cullen, mostly Cullen, disrespected you.
I'm sorry about that, Robert. You know we're good, my man.
Just so we're clear, we're talking about Robert the doll, not Cullen's friend, Robert.
Fuck you, Robert. The person. Robert the doll, you're my new Robert.
Fun.
So I think that wraps up Robert the doll for us.
Gonna go pray the rosary and...
Robert, if you are not offended by what we've said, because it's all in good fun, I'd like you to send us a letter. That would be very nice.
Yes, it's all in good fun, Robert the doll.
You're my favorite Robert, and I have a best friend for like 10 years named Robert.
Yeah.
So signing off from this week of Anomalous, this is Spooky Cullen.
No, never.
This is just Cullen.
This is Spooky Maddie.
And we might chat with you one more time come Halloween. Until then, have a fun October 2020.
Please forgive me, Robert the doll, please.
Oh, fuck. How do we all believe in Robert the doll, believe in yourself?
Oh, yeah. Believe in Robert's little dog. Woof. Believe in yourself. Adios, amigos.
Oh, my God.